And this is kind of like it's a bank holiday feel, I think, to this one from Ben. Thank you very much indeed for this. Simon, Joe and Bobby, as the May bank holiday approaches, I feel that by confessing now, my soul might at last be absolved after many years of being racked by guilt. Our family of 5 had taken the opportunity of the extended weekend to go to Holland and visit a well-known holiday park where we spent a 3-night break with another family, doubtless having stroopwafels, like as in yesterday's.
Oh, was that band playing there?
Oh, they were fantastic, weren't they? I think they're playing Coventry.
Oh, I hope so.
On the bank holiday Monday, we left with our friends at the appointed hour and drove back towards the ferry port at Calais. Having made good progress, we were in plenty of time to make our scheduled crossing, and given that we were ahead of our friends, who'd had to make a comfort break en route, we decided that we would have a brief detour to a wine warehouse in Calais. Despite having limited spare space in our sensible family car, we managed to shoehorn some cases of wine around the children in the back of the car. However, the 20 minutes detour with this wine run, it led to the event for which I now seek your forgiveness. Our ferry crossing was scheduled to be at 3 p.m. French time, but despite arriving with more than the requisite time to make this departure, we were informed that due to it being a busy day, we'd have to take the later crossing at 4:30. We contacted our friends who thought we'd be on the same boat, but they actually told us that they were in line for the 3 p.m. ferry on account of being just 10 minutes earlier than us. After mild protestations at our misfortune, which were met, of course, with a Gallic shrug, we duly put our 4:30 departure slip of paper around our rear-view mirror and parked in a line with the other later departees. As it happens, we were right alongside those cars, fortunate enough to be on the 3 p.m. sailing, many of which had had makeovers with a nod to the General Lee, Blues Brothers and A-Team, amongst others. Strange. I would describe the owners of these vehicles as raucous, most of them drinking various alcoholic beverages, sharing stories, laughing and generally enjoying themselves. What was going on? My experience, however, was not proving to be so enjoyable. I was stuck in our car with 3 fractious children and a grumpy wife. After 5 minutes, I decided to go for a walk to try and rescue some sanity. And as I walked through a very windy car park, a piece of paper blew across the tarmac. Because I recognized its shape, I instinctively stuck out my foot and stood on it. As discreetly as I could, I bent down and picked up the piece of paper, hopefully looking as if I was a good citizen picking up some rubbish. I looked at the piece of paper. It was gold dust, Simon. It had big letters, and it said 3 p.m. That's 3 and p.m. Below this was a number 4, and it took a while for me to understand the significance of this. Looking at the other cars, some of their departure slips had 2 on it, some had 3, some had 4, and our original piece of paper had a 5 on it. We realized that this number actually designated the number of people traveling in the car, which immediately raised a problem as we were a family of 5. My children overheard my wife and I discussing this dilemma, and having been brought up to be completely honest and to always act with integrity, my youngest suggested a very practical solution. She offered to hide in the footwell of one of the back seats, and having demonstrated that she could be concealed in that position, we decided that we should follow this plan. As 3 p.m. approached, the vehicles for the sailing were called forward, and we carefully snuck across into the lane with the other vehicles. As we made our way across the port to the ferry, we noticed that one old and beaten-up vehicle had been pulled aside. It appeared that this car of 4 people did not have a departure slip hanging over their rear view mirror, and they were not being allowed onto the ferry. We, on the other hand, drove onto the ferry, removed the paper from our rear view mirror, and went up on deck to meet our friends, who were somewhat surprised to witness our promotion to the earlier sailing. Did we feel smug? On our return to England, I looked on the internet to see whether the car whose place I had taken was part of some car rally. My guilt worsened when I saw that the car in question was a participant in what's known as the Scum Run, an annual charitable road rally open to vehicles with a maximum price of 500 quid. Therefore, not only had I taken the place of 4 people and their vehicle, I had taken the place of 4 people who had driven to Madrid over the long weekend as part of a charity fundraiser. So I obviously therefore need forgiveness, but not from the border agencies as we went through border controls as a 5-person family, nor am I seeking forgiveness from the ferry company as there was ample room for our extra child alongside everyone else on the ferry. I do seek forgiveness from the 4 unfortunate scum runners who were left on the quayside in Calais, and strongly urge the ferry company to make a donation on my behalf because, let's be honest, it was their fault. Well, I'm not quite sure about that, Ben. How does that work out that it's their fault? And why should they make a donation? Anyway, that's the way Ben sees it. He got that magic piece of paper. He snuck over slightly earlier. However, there was a price to be paid by the scum runners. Joe, what do you make of that?
Ain't no way on earth is this person going to be forgiven. Ben, how could you possibly do that? A, you're an opportunist. You knew full well what you were doing when your foot just shot out to stand on the little bit of paper, which you obviously recognised was a ticket for the 3 p.m. You also knew what you were doing, concealing a child to get onto the ferry. I wouldn't be surprised when you went to this place in Holland, which lots of us might have been to in the UK as well. Maybe you concealed a child when you were going in there as well. I'm not saying you did, but possibly you might have done that if you're this kind of person.
He sounds like the kind of person, yes.
Yeah, and when you say, didn't we feel smug? Didn't you feel guilty? I think that's what you should be saying. So no, not forgiven at all.
Okay, it's a hard line from Joe. What do you say, Bobby?
Well, Joe was after that one. There you go. Joe was after my heart, because the thing I've highlighted here is the word smug.
Yeah.
Ben, the only thing you felt was smug and a small child under your feet. Encouraging your children to be so deceitful is not a good example in this case. Also, the passenger safety list. They're really important, so it seems like quite a trivial thing, and you want to kind of jump forward. Also, the reason why you were late is you were going off to get wine.
I forgot about the wine. Oh, my goodness.
Wine. So self-interest all the way, Ben. So you are not forgiven.